welcome to the SoundVision podcast on the importance of independent artistic action. Thank you so much for being here and listening. We're going to talk about important subjects and a little bit of everything. Our first guest is a very special person. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, okay, do you want to introduce yourself first of all?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So my name is ALEXANDRA ENDALTSEVA. I am Russian by nationality. I've lived in many places, and now I live in Paris. Let's say I'm based in Paris. I still travel quite a bit and spend months in different locations, but my base is Paris now. And I think if I am to define myself, I am a thinker, a dancer, and say a concerned creator. Let's put it this way.
I like the way you put that words. I like it. Okay, so what's like your main... Okay, so you do Life of Things project. Do you want to explain a little bit what that is?
Yeah, I say that it started. It's a very funny story about it. It's a really life of thing as life of a project, because this project started as a set project with an idea, an objective, a timeline, and then any project comes to an end. There was a budget. I mean, it was a project, but now it really is more of a perspective. It is more of a moral perspective, I think. And then now, Life of Things just becomes this guiding concept in my scholarly work, and in my dance, and in my, say, self-ethnography, when I just reflect on how I view the world, and also on the new creations that I propose or conceive. So the basic idea of Life of Things is it's this contradiction that intuitively you'd say that a thing is a non-living thing. There is no life in it. Yet to look beyond this, I'd say, learned intuition, to unlearn that thing is not living, we can look at things in a different manner, and we can see the stories that live within the stories. Let's say if I look at a woman who is walking fast and down dark alley, and I observe her, and I see that her shoulders are up, and she's walking fast, and she turns her head all the time, then if I'm to tap into this life, I'd see many stories there. I see the generations of abuse, television, misogyny. I will see riding Red Hood when I was a child, and then there's so many lives and lifelines that live within the matter that makes us as humans question our involvement with the matter. And I think that this is more of an ethical stance. So ethical stance in everything, in thinking, in doing, in living the world. So then, when we just started, it was in 2017. It was September 2017. I spent half a year doing my ethnographic fieldwork for my PhD project in Moscow. And then my ethnographic fieldwork was it was within the community of people ill with multiple sclerosis.
Okay. So you started with that.
Yeah, so that was the
first...
start. That was the really the ignition point.
Okay, so your first project with Life of Things was with these people.
Yeah, it was
the
with
first
these
action
people.
maybe.
Yeah, that was the first manifestation
Right.
of this idea.
So what was the project exactly?
So it was funny because I first noticed. I mean, we've done a lot of things with patients, and I've been really involved with the community. We had a lot of fun. We were like riding horses and
With the same people who have that sickness?
yes,
Yeah?
and they really, being with them for half a year, it opened a completely different lens for me, like just thinking of the world and knowing the world through the lens of disability that I don't have, but my counterparts share with me. Like they share with me their disability as a lens, and I found this absolutely humbling and you know, and it was a very intimate relationship that we built with each other. And then in this relationship I noticed that they really build this intimate relationships also with prostheses, with wheelchairs, with medicaments, with infrastructures. It was a very
Like the life changes totally.
yeah,
The objects of everyday life are different and the needs.
yeah,
I never thought about that.
yeah,
in that
exactly.
way.
So they,
clearly.
you know, like we take, like if I take this glass of water and I take for granted that I'm holding this glass of water, but actually what I would notice there, that it takes immense relationship to take a glass of water, because you have to coordinate between the shaking hand.
You have to have a hand.
You have to have a hand
That's
at first. Then if you have a hand, or if you have a prosthesis instead of it, you have to coordinate its movement with the weight of the glass of water, with the texture of this glass also.
Yeah.
So it's an intense relationship that is happening.
The heat of it.
The
also.
heat of it, yeah, it's really a conscious relationship that is happening there.
Yeah. With my glass.
Yeah, with the glass of water. And then that was a total life changer, because that is with all the things. And then from there was an idea that if we as humans, if we stay in our fragility and vulnerability and allow to be fragile and vulnerable, it has actually a very big ethical, environmental impact.
You mean a positive one or a negative one?
Just very different.
General.
I don't know.
Could have different outcomes.
It could have different outcomes.
If we let ourselves be vulnerable to everything that's happening in our lives, whether it's like handicap or it's just everyday life stuff, you mean?
Yeah, and also not taking things for granted. Like understanding that every interaction with the material world that we have is a very complex and rich interaction. There's a lot of life going on there, and if we let ourselves to be fragile, to allow this life to come into our body, then it's a different style of
Different
being.
way of living.
Yeah, it's a different way of living.
It's like a conscious way of living. And I was gonna.
It very resonates with all the, you know, with the teachings of meditation and all that, but it's very practical at the same time.
So one word that came to me when I was on my way here was to talk to you about something about conscious. That word, conscious or consciousness, that I think is like totally linked with your work and what you do. Like it's very conscious, but I can't tell you why I'm thinking that way. I've seen your posts on Facebook and some stuff that you do, but I always see kind of like an aura of like consciousness, and I think that maybe you're aware of that. Is that true? Like consciousness is something that you're working maybe towards, like becoming bigger, like growing in people, something like that? Or am I totally mistaken?
No, but it's a very good question because I'm asking myself this question a lot as well.
Of course.
I think, yeah, I'm thinking a lot about that because I think that the word consciousness is being polluted a
Oh
lot.
yeah. Well, I wasn't really thinking about like, but it's true that for our audience, we can't really be so shallow like I was gonna be. So for me, consciousness is like just when you stop for a minute and just reflect like that, because I think that often we go through our day. It can happen that like we have a lot of distractions around us. We have our phone, we have our schedule, we have our work, we have our friends, we have people, we have relationships. I think that for me, allowing some space to just be is already like what consciousness is, and then just being aware that you're a person, because sometimes we just don't think about it. We're on our phone, and we lose the kind of meaning of like purpose of why I'm here, that I think is a real thing, and
Yeah.
I live by that. For me, consciousness is the difference between like living by that and forgetting that. Is that part of like what you want to do with your work, with the patients that you have, or is it completely different? Is it more based in like art, action, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that when I started this work in 2017, it was about action. It was definitely the first exhibition that we've done with patients. It was about action. It was about going. We specifically chose a location. It's a historic monument. It's an old Soviet constructivist building, big, ugly, heavy, totally inaccessible by wheelchair, horrible infrastructure.
And it's
To
for
get-
patients.
Yeah, to get there from, well, I mean, it's a cultural center. It's like a community center. But to get there from the metro station, you have to like hop through. I mean, and we specifically found this location, and we decided to host our exhibition on people with prosthesis and with assistive devices. There was a photo exhibition and
Okay.
public talks, and we specifically wanted to host it there
Okay.
and to do what's called inverted stage, when you show the fuck ups that you have in art
Oh yeah.
to the audience.
Okay.
So it
I've
was
never heard of that.
yeah, it's like we did this inverted stage when people did come already to vernissage. They were there, they were ready for the opening and for the public debate that opened this exhibition. And we had our people on the wheelchairs. We like were dragging them up the thing loudly, like loudly voicing that this is inaccessible and all that. And then there was Tatiana, this amazing woman, and her on her. She has an electric wheelchair, and she specifically left it there and just took, the stroller, and she's like, oh no, like I'm walking by myself. So it was a lot of staging. There was a lot of staging, and we started as action. For me, that was action.
So basically, okay, so you had the first thing that you did was an exhibition, but who was the artist? Was it the patients who were doing art, or was it you on them about?
Yeah,
their
so the exhibition, a part of the concept also was to be very humble in what I know and what I don't know as an artist.
Okay.
So actually, all the artwork I've done a media challenge. It was a social media challenge through the entire country when I basically voiced my concern about the life of things and about looking at the world differently, and asked people to share their stories and what they see in these stories to unpack this concept of life of things. So I've received photographs and stories from all over the country.
Okay.
And then my work was more of creating a narrative out of it, and then inviting people for public debate and finding space, editing the photographs, of course, because they were of different qualities and sizes.
And the subject of the exhibition was the handicap of
It was, it was called generally on relationships between humans and things. But when I did the challenge, I explained that this idea came from being with the disabled people. So we had 20 stories. We had 20 works. And the 21st work was an empty work where there was a question, what's your story? And there were empty sheets of paper for the people who visit this exhibition to write their story. And out of this 20, I think there was like 8 stories of people without disability, and then the rest of people with prosthesis or some kind of disabilities. And then the two stories were from cyborgs, actually, from people who don't, according to the norm, they have the functional body, but their body is not enough for them, personally. So one of them has implanted a credit card and something else in his hand.
Okay, so people who are listening cannot see my face right now, but it's like
it's expressive.
Yeah, my mouth just dropped when you said that.
Yeah, that was pretty intense, and it was implanted in his hand, and then another one, it was some kind of device that would open doors and open the car for him, and it was implanted in his finger.
Smart.
Yeah, and this person would like go and literally snap fingers and the doors would open.
It's amazing and terrifying at the same time. I would not implant that on my finger, I think.
Yeah, but that was they're basically for these particular people, their body was not enough and they needed assistance, and they've done it.
Yeah, it's their choice.
Yeah, so that's and they're aware that this is a thing living within their body, and they also establish a relationship with it.
That's totally right, and you can explore that as well.
Yeah,
you did do it when you went in contact with that, like what it does to them to have this object inside of them in their everyday life, and the relationship, as you just said.
Yeah, and it's constantly going. Like one of them who has this implant in his hand, he's like, oh yeah, I learned one thing practically, that when I go outside during the winter time, I need to put on gloves for sure, because the protection patch is made of silicone and it freezes, because he lives in Moscow, it freezes, when it's really cold.
Terrifying for me to hear about that.
Yeah, I know. But then at the same time, I think that from the artistic perspective, it's beautiful, because it's a change of like little things that it's speaking of consciousness, like this is being conscious about these details, like having this link.
It's also like, how do you remain conscious when you know you have that? How does that, it's like, how do you go with technology but remain centered in yourself? And I think it's just interesting, because I really believe that it's totally possible. We're already doing it, like we thought that cell phones were going to be the death of us, like consciously, but it's not true. You can have a cell phone and you can meditate and you can be a very conscious being and go on Facebook sometimes, like, so I was thinking about the finger thing. How do you stay conscious in your life when you have that in your life, in your finger every day of your life? I think it's fascinating.
I think that's where Life of Things turns into a perspective, turns beyond one artistic project into a perspective.
Like an ideal. or a way of thinking.
Yeah, so that's
Probably.
and that's it's a moral. I don't know. It's a
Yeah, like
it's
philosophy, right?
yeah,
Could you like that's what I'm getting the feeling of
exactly.
what it can be, but just one side of it, right? I think that you have the exhibition. Have you done something else like
Yeah, it's
yeah?
been after this I came to Paris after the exhibition, and I started just to tell stories about this exhibition
Okay.
because I really I sensed that there is more than just one action there, and like to your question whether it's an action or it's a way of being consciousness, then I started to sense that it's actually a way of being conscious. It's not it's more than an action.
Yeah.
It's a perspective. And then and I just started to tell stories here to startup communities, to artist communities about this exhibition, about what happened, and just openly seeking other opinions. And then I've met Yannick, and he has an incredible like he really lives life of things, like because it's I mean, like taking the particularity of his like personal biological state, he's very he's in this case he's incredibly conscious, and I think that in him I've really seen what is it to be zen without sitting under the tree all the time, you know.
Okay.
Like, and I really saw a different perspective on being conscious as being attending to the relationship that is happening between self and matter.
Okay. Can we explain a little bit who Yannick is for the people who are listening?
Yeah, sure. Yannick
They're
is
gonna be confused.
oh, he's many things. He's a visual artist. He does a lot of photography. He does filming. He mostly films like music events, like commercially, but also he has artistic work that is non-commercial. He has I don't remember what was the name of his artistic collective. Yeah, and Yannick, we've met, and he was really it spoke to him. This idea spoke to him, and then we started a series of meetings. We started recherche création to find what is it life of things, how do we conceive it in between of us.
Okay,
and
so
then,
okay, I'm gonna stop you right here because I have a question. I'm getting the feeling that this meeting was very important because it brought something new to your project, in a way, like a new perspective that is an artist. You're an artist as well. Do you consider like you're an artist?
Apart from other things,
and a human and many other things, but let me talk about me for a second. I think that the meeting between artists is just incredibly important and rich, and it's also something that I'm learning, that it takes time, that we cannot rush through it or overdo it, and that has been a tough lesson for me. Well, tough, it's been a soft lesson. Okay, it hasn't been that tough, but so yeah, that's why I think I sense that meeting Yannick here in Paris was something that was kind of big, maybe for the way of thinking, to bring new ideas to. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Because then, when you collaborate and when you co-create, then you're a little bit less of yourself, and then the other person is a little bit less of themselves, but then together with the context you're more. So by being less you becoming more, and
you achieve something.
Your artwork is more vibrant because it's alive, because it's not a dead concept that is being born in your head. It's actually something that is being
shared.
shared.
Yeah, and that's so important to me right now. It's like this, like sharing. It's such a natural thing, and I do think that sometimes it's not the time to share, and you just have to retreat. And I think every human has times when they need to share and times when they
need to accumulate.
But I think the part about sharing to the outside world, to whoever is ready to hear you, to other colleagues, to other artists, to other people who are not at all related to your work.
Absolutely.
It's everything. It's like it has to be a big part. It's the community, you know. And I'm afraid that we have less of that these days. Like it's, with the big cities, they go like really, really fast. And the kind of community energy that we had, I think in the past years, I don't know which years was that, but I think when people were living in different ways, we had more community. It was more natural. But now, I don't know, what do you think about that? Like the community?
I don't know. Well, I think here I have a very, let's say, political stance on that. I think that a big part of sharing is being ready for your mental constructs to be challenged. Sharing is more than giving. It's actually making yourself vulnerable and accepting that your mental constructs may be challenged. And I think that I think it's been always the thing for humans, for our brain, to say, oh no, I might be wrong. And something could be invited in. So I think that's a big challenge, and it's always been a big challenge. But another question is that this challenge became, let's say, sickness with the growth of capitalist society, for sure. Because if you look at education system, if you look at business system right now, it's centered around goals, achievements. Goals are pre-constructed. It's a mental construct that has very little to do with the outside reality. Very little to do. It's just a mental thing, empty, and then achievement.
And we're obligated to learn.
Exactly.
At the beginning of our life.
And then that's how people are being socialized. That there is a goal and there is achievement. And then we're not being socialized that we can question the goal. Nobody teaches to question the goal.
When I started to do that, my life changed,
And that's a way of consciousness. That's
180,
Yeah, exactly.
And I was happy in 1 second, because when you understand that you can make your own goals and that they have to make you happy, not someone else, it's not the same after.
It's not the same after. And that's where you are not afraid to share, and you go into the community because you understand that if you can question the goal, somebody else can question the goal as well.
And that it's not such a big deal, and you're like willing to be wrong, because there's no more like, I'm getting an A on this or B or D.
Because there are no wrongs and rights.
It's like, it's also learning that failure is a great thing, because if you fail, first of all, you may fail because you're not so interested in something that as you thought you would, so you don't do it anymore. So that was a great thing,
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you fail and you realize that you really want it, whatever it is. So now you can do it again. Like, what's gonna happen, right?
And
exactly. We've been taught in school that you have to get an A or a B.
And that there's a right answer.
That's a whole
And then
so-
and it's the bifurcation, like that you learn poetry separately from when you learn mathematics. Why the heck?
Yeah.
Like, or music from mathematics. Music and mathematics are pretty much the same.
I've
Why do
never
we
thought
like?
about
Why
that.
do we learn it separately? It doesn't make any sense.
And it's like our brains have been wired in such specific ways, but there's so many new wires that we could make. Or like if we taught children to do mathematics and music together, it would make a new pathways in their
Yeah.
brain. They'll be like so smart if they want to learn a new
Yeah.
instrument or something.
Yeah. I think that coming back to your question about the loss of community, I think that capitalism is one big what's called sickness, and then colonialism is another big sickness, and patriarchy as well. Patriarchy is what there is this amazing feminist thinker, Carol Gilligan. She has a book on patriarchy, and she says that patriarchy is the rule of fathers, of patrons. It's the same thing as hierarchy, because hierarchy comes from the rule of Hierophant, right? Of the church, of the priests. And it's the same thing. The rule of priests and the rule of fathers means that there is a bunch of people who makes the goals, the mental constructs, and then the entire world lives to live up to these goals.
Yes, and this is exactly why I am making this podcast, so that we can understand that we don't have to live by that, and that there's other ways of living, other philosophies that we can open our minds to and live by that.
Yeah.
No matter what system we're living in, if it's democracy, if it's something else, wherever you're listening,
Yeah.
You know?
So, and I think that's a big distinction, that like what Gilligan says, that the opposite is democracy, but we don't know what is democracy, because democracy means different voices. And then with this, I'm very concerned with this colonial mindset that we still all have. And we still all have this in our genes, and it's okay, we just have to recognize it and be open to different ways of thinking. I'm recently I'm spending so much time listening and reading Gayatri Spivak. She's a philosopher, and she's many things. She's an amazing feminist philosopher, and she was dealing with the subaltern. Like, these are territories who's been colonized, and she's been saying that education in humanities is an uncoercive rearrangement of desires.
Okay.
And I think that is just incredible, because the desires are colonial, because those who are illiterate who are in colonial territories and illiterate think that they are of a lower quality, and their desires are of a lower quality. And those who are educated with the university degrees and living in France,
I'm starting to understand that, like the desires that we're still living by desires that are actually from that time.
Yeah, exactly. But we're still living by colonial desires. And it takes effort. And it takes community and sharing to go beyond these desires.
These desires, because I feel like desires are stronger than just thoughts. They're maybe just desires.
Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe they're just thoughts that we're thinking over and over and over and over again, but they're really strongly there. And yeah, I think it's a great idea to work on, through community and conversation and communication, understand that we don't have to think in one way or another.
Yeah.
And that's how we can free our minds.
Yeah. And
so
stay
simple.
in this in between. Yeah, like question moral
yeah.
judgments and
Because we know we might not always be right.
exactly, yeah.
And yes, it's true, when you're ready to share, you have to accept the fact that you might be confronted with a totally different way of thinking, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
We don't need to fight.
Yeah. And I think that's why I really love your idea of this podcast. It is so really making space to just think and to be.
To be.
It's incredibly valuable.
It's almost like you were eavesdropping on someone's really interesting conversation in the subway.
Yeah.
You'd learn something, you know?
Yeah.
Or being part of the conversation would be even better. But
Yeah. And also, yeah, imagine like your own things. I've been talking with my brother recently. There are a lot of like political conflict in Russia going on, and so we've been just talking how sad this whole like environmental crisis and stuff. And then he's 8 years younger than me, and he's an incredibly sensitive, incredibly wise person. And he said, "Come on, like, when did we lose playfulness? When did we lose the joy? Why do we think that deciding the destiny of the world should be serious, geopolitical? We have to like sit down in a big fancy room, wear like ties
with contracts. We all have to have signed something beforehand.
We have to
change
show
the world.
how much armor we have, how big the economy is. Like,
and it has to be done in a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Procedures.
By certain experts, you know, like. And because the rest are just like looking at it from the TV screen, like
what the hell? How did we fucking decide that?
Yeah.
Who decided that?
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't me. Yeah, I totally get that. It's like, actually, I believe that it's through joy and pleasure, like having a picnic with people and just sharing food and talking about something on a certain subject, that is going to change the big things.
Yeah.
For me, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's not by being
I resonate absolutely.
Me too. I understand what you're saying with, like, what your brother is saying.
Yeah.
About when did we forget that it's all about playfulness? You know, like we don't really stop being children. You know, we also become adults. But we're still the child.
Yeah.
We have the two parts, and they can play together, and they're supposed to coexist.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, I think that institutions, schools, societies, workplaces just cut the child part out like it's not important. And for me, it really breaks my heart, because I'm an artist, and my child self is very developed. It's
the core of an art. Yeah, the inner child is the creator.
It has infinite power of creation and just kindness and ideas and creativity
and connection to the rest. Understanding that being a human is not being at the center of the world. It doesn't equal. Being a human is being humble. It's being a part of everything else.
It's like how I need friends, so how am I going to make friends? I need to be able to connect with people, not think that I'm above, or just think about my adult self that needs to work. Like, I also need to be able to relax, laugh, be kind, create connection with other people. For me to be happy.
Not only people. I mean, look at children, how they're like playing in the puddles during the rain, or with the trees and all that. The world, like the environment around. It's
definitely.
It has its soul,
it's
if you
playable.
want.
We can play with it.
We can play with it.
Like nature has everything that we need to like enjoy, and I think that we really know that when we're children.
Exactly.
We can have fun with a little leaf, a tiny little leaf, looking at it for like 5 minutes, you know, maybe more.
Yeah. And we enjoy it, like, as children, the studies between like children and mothers, like, look at how affectionate they are, like how sensitive they are. They sense every little detail, like how attentive they are to their mother and to her voice and to her state. And yeah, this part is very precious. And yeah, I think that this part is it's really a political question to keep
I
it
feel
going.
like I'm wondering, it's a question that I have these days, if can we bring back, and I think I found my answer, but can we bring back certain moments of our childhood and kind of like go over them? Or almost have a moment in this present time, but see it from the perspective of the child that you are, your inner child, and like just come and have your heart and your kindness be all around it and just see it from that perspective instead of like the adult perspective. I think that yes.
Yeah, definitely. There, you know that like Carl Jung, this psychoanalytic, he's invented a technique of active imagination.
Okay.
When he would literally put himself, imagine himself as a child, and start playing with toys as being an adult. And he did come up with this idea that this active imagination, it has immense healing power. Like it actually heals, and that
That's crazy,
like,
you know, I could
that's
be
crazy.
playing with toys as an adult.
You don't need to take pills and
Yeah, but
antidepressants.
that's the
Like,
thing.
yeah, you don't need to buy the pharmaceutical thing. Like, play
I
with
think
toys.
that's the bottom line. You may laugh at what we're saying right now, like an adult playing with toys. First of all, I think there's a lot of like repression of your child in society. Like we repress like who we were as children. We repress it, and there's a lot of shame with like being a kid when you're an adult. Like
or not knowing or being silly.
but I think like when you see it from like the other side, which is being depressed and having pills and being an alcoholic and being homeless, what would you rather, you know? Play with a toy and have all of that be like fixed, not fixed, but you know, going through your emotions. Like I don't really play with toys, but
No, but that's, I mean, it could be anything. It doesn't, I mean, it's more of a
like,
yeah, it could be anything.
like painting.
Yeah, painting.
For me, it's
doing
my toys.
art, dancing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh,
For
yeah.
me,
Oh, yeah.
dancing, I go travel the world when I dance. Like I am absolutely, like when I'm improvising, I am in the state of active imagination.
Yeah,
And I play with other
yeah.
people, and I play with the floor, and I play with the things around, and I might play a little, you know, like
Music,
rhythm. Yeah. And
Yeah. So you do contact dance. I'm saying that
yeah.
for the audience again.
Yeah.
And I think contact dance it's really about playing.
It's a lot. It's first of all of sensing your. For me, it is a very humble practice, because I really, in contact improvisation, I embody the idea that I am just another surface, and I am dissolved in the space and the gravity and the forces of this planet. Like, it's, for me, it's an incredible, it's an artistic, it's an aesthetic experience for me. I get high on like thinking that, oh my God, I'm moving with the entire globe right now. I'm sensing this gravity, I'm sensing my weight, I'm sensing inertia. I'm like, and that is just, I'm tripping, like literally.
Yeah, natural
I'm tripping on this.
Wow.
And then as well there is the social component, and then as well there is a playfulness, staying surprised, not knowing what's gonna happen next, falling, you know, like bumping, being awkward, and so it's very rich. And I think that the aesthetics might be not seen as clearly from the outside. So yeah, you can perform it obviously, but then when you're inside, or when you know what is contact improvisation, and when you watch somebody and kind of emphatically resonate with them, I think that the aesthetics is immense aesthetics coming there, like inside. You're living art, you're being art, you're with it, you're in emphatic state, and
I
it's
resonate
really,
with that 100% when you said that.
yeah, because you're a dancer, you know,
Yes,
like you
yes.
know this, you know.
And I haven't done that contact dance, that practice for a few, but it made me want to do it again. Because I remembered, and that's why everything you just said, I understand it.
Yeah.
Because I did it, and I do it by myself, not with other people right now.
But then no, I've
could-
seen you dance. You play with the space. You play
Yes,
with
yes.
light. You play with. That's
very
that's
inspired
also
by that,
that's
yeah.
also you're getting into contact with
It's
the.
part of the everything that I did in my life in terms of dance. I brought it to, so there, even though there's not someone next to me,
Yeah.
contact dance is really part of how I dance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
why I go to the wall. That's why I grab things. That's why if there's someone next to me, I'll lean on them.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, as I've been saying, like beyond the microphone, that I'm super, like, summarizing our thought journey. I'm super grateful for this opportunity to take time and to speak and to nourish each other. Because I think it's very, like, it's very it's a big luxury that we have right now.
Oh,
so thank you so
yes,
much. Yeah,
no, it's my pleasure. I
Thank you
feel the
so
same.
much, yeah.
And it's so true that it's like a spa moment.
Yeah,
for
it's a absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think that we get that every day, or like every, like we have to make space and time for like this kind of connection between artist to artist, or like just person to person as well. But
yeah, it's an emotional spa.
yes.
So I also think that, like, this being an artist right now is a very it's a very precarious kind of thing. You're like always searching for funding, trying to explain yourself, trying to find correct names for yourself. Well, that's always a problem, because you can't just come in and say I'm an artist, because everywhere you come in and say I'm an artist, you need to show a diploma of an art school, or I don't know, a contract with the gallery. But then it's like, well, what if, like, what if I do community art? What if I, like, what if what I do is not really about diplomas and
exactly,
being in a gallery, like.
And that is exactly what I mean by independent artistic action.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nice. It's a very nice combination of words.
Thank
Independent
you.
artistic action. I love
Because
it.
it's independent.
I love it.
It's an artist. It's art, and it's an action.
And it's
like what we're doing now is that because it's independent, we're not being paid to do it right now.
Yeah.
We could be a great piece of content.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, how do we find the resources as independent artists? Because sometimes some of us, we don't want to be in the system, and that's just the reality,
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel the same way as I do, but for me it's been very difficult to fit into any like company, or because I'm a creator. But then again, being a creator, how do I get the resources that I need right now? Like,
Yes.
I still need to do my independent actions. I still need to make my art happen, because that's my way of being. That's who I am at the deepest core of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I hear you. I realized, it's been several months ago. I was at some kind of academic event. I don't remember, some kind of conference or something.
Yeah.
And there was a person who asked me, so what do you do? Like, who are you? And I caught myself on being like ashamed and immediately running back to, you know, this academic status and saying, you know, I'm a PhD researcher. And then I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what? And that's hard, man. Like, that's really hard not to run away to the existing social status and to say, you know, I'm an in-betweener. Like,
yeah,
I'm an in-betweener, and I'm fine with, like, I like this because this gives me creative juices. This gives me, it also allows me to be a chameleon and to be, I'm neither here nor there, but I'm all over the place at the same time.
For me, because I'm so young, I'm 24 years old, and it's really young. I don't care what anybody says, but until you're like 40 years old, you're really, really young.
Yeah.
And in that time, I don't think that it's appropriate to try to put people in, but any time in their life, but I think especially in that time of our lives, it's just about testing things and learning, because we're not done learning, we're just learning in a different way.
I think we always learn.
True, yeah.
I think we always learn. And at the moment, I think that that's a big, to think that you stopped learning, that's the start of your death.
Oh yeah.
That's it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
Definitely.
That means that your time in here is finished.
But you can start learning again.
Yeah,
If
that's
you
the
stop.
thing. That's
Yeah.
and I think that that's the beauty, to always be with this
Evolving,
ignorance lens, like, kind of, okay.
So I think that what you're saying is, when people meet you and they really try to define you right away, I think that, especially for people who do creative things or are still in a process of any kind, that can just break you in half. Like, what am I supposed to say now? But you have someone in front of you who may or may not like exist through concepts. You know, it's almost like they exist through that, so they need that reassurance that you're not just floating in space. Like, they can really say, okay, she's artist, or like, she's a scientist, but like, what if you're both?
Yeah, that's the thing. But because for me, being an artist is being an in-betweener. For me, that's the, not having a diploma and not
That's
being
so, for me, it's exactly that.
Yeah.
I've always felt like that my whole life.
Yeah.
Being always in between, always researching, always looking for new ideas or whatever the inspiration is gonna give me. It's always being in between the moments.
Yeah, it's more like being a channel for, like, it's more like being a channel, and to materialize, like, certain things.
Yeah.
But and that's why I'm having so much trouble when people ask me to define myself, and if I dare, I mostly, to be honest, in most cases, I'm total sucker. I run away and I'm ashamed and I'm like, I'm an academic. In most cases, I'm very
You don't
much.
say it.
Yeah, I don't have the courage.
Honestly, I've practiced it and I find it, like, I laugh my ass off every time, because there's just a big smile on my face when I say exactly what I mean. And maybe the person in front of me is going to dismiss me 100%, and I'm ready for that, because I'm like, if you exist through concepts, then too bad for you, because I don't. And so I just say exactly who I am at that precise moment, you know?
Yeah.
Even though yesterday I was a painter and then a dancer, and today I feel like, no, I've decided that dance is number one for me and painting is like second, and then the next day I'm like, it's both part of my practice and it's indissociable.
Yeah.
I just say what the fuck is on my mind. And I smile.
that's beautiful.
I
Yeah.
think so too. It makes me laugh inside because I know that it's moving.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to exist, I think,
Yeah.
and define yourself, like whatever's now.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, that's a good tip. Yeah, I like that.
and if
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, but didn't you say yesterday that?" You say, "I changed my mind."
Yeah.
Because it's okay
I like
to change
that.
your mind,
It's
right?
okay. Yeah, it's okay.
So that's
Yeah, I
what I
like
do.
that.
And the more you do it, the more you see that people in front of you will start to laugh and have a smile, even if they don't understand exactly what you are or what you're saying that you are. They will sense that you're so happy saying that they'll
And then
smile
you're
with
not
you.
taking yourself seriously as well.
Yes,
Like, because
but at the same time, when you get out of the conversation, they still are like, "Oh yeah, but like she's something, like she's an artist with science," or whatever you want to tell people that you are in that moment. And so they get out of the conversation with the concept that you're really something interesting, actually, you know.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not that they won't take you seriously, they probably will take you even more seriously because you're not like, "Oh, I'm PhD
Yeah, but you
this," or
yourself not taking yourself
Yeah.
too seriously,
Yeah.
that's the key.
humbling,
That's
you
the
know.
key. Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
they think that I'm shit, they think that I'm whatever, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine with me. They
that's
think
fine by
I'm
me, yeah.
they think I'm amazing, they think I'm shit, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say my thing, and they're
Yeah.
gonna think what they're gonna think, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna think what I'm gonna think about me, you know.
Yeah, I like that.
I think it takes practice.
It takes practice.
Yeah, you just
Takes
do it once,
practice
see the
and yeah.
because it's fun. You see the people's reaction, and they just smile with you. You know, they're
Yeah.
they're there with you. They can sense that you like that you love what you're doing, like whatever it is. If like tomorrow you decide to be a cook, I'm a cook, and you feel so proud, and they're like, okay, you know. It's not like you've been a cook for 25 years and someone is like, "What do you do?" And you're like, "I'm still a cook," you know. But
I'm gonna definitely try this.
Try it.
Because for me it's been always like, okay, I'm collecting all my courage now. And I'm saying that I'm an artist. And you know, it's been always hard. But I like this approach. I'm gonna
Yeah.
steal it. I'm gonna definitely put it in my toolbox.
You can.
Yes.
And also, I think it's just a big talk about we don't need to have certain diplomas or any kind of qualification to say that you're an artist. If you know that you're an artist, you can say it. You are one.
Yeah.
To me, everybody is an artist.
Amen.
So that's it.
All right. Well, super.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here on the Sound Vision podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here. All right. So little spoiler alert. In starting with November in Paris in Doc Art Squad, I will start to co-lead a. It's like a lab, which is going to be called Embodied Feminism. So it's going to be open to all the artists, thinkers, like however people want to define themselves. It's going to be open, it's going to be free. It's going to happen every second Tuesday of the month, starting with November, as I said. There will be artists from DOC, there will be dancers and other people invited. So the objective is to research, to lab on exactly on how to see the world differently through our bodies in the movement.
Awesome.
So I'm really inviting everybody. I'm very pumped to start this. I think it's going to be cool.
Thank you so much for being here and listening to the first Sound Vision podcast ever. If you want to support art, artists, and the creation of this podcast, I have a Patreon account. It will be in the description. Patreon is basically a place where you can choose to support with the amount of your choice, and it's every month. If you can't support, thank you for just being here and giving us a view. And don't hesitate to share this with someone who might benefit from listening to this talk. And until next time, much love.